r/nosleep. Posted by Reddit user luckieslin. My family just moved into a new house. We found a strange set of rules to follow. Part 1. Recently, my dad got a new job at a town about 50 miles away, so we had to move. I wasn't happy about it. None of us were, but it was a good job offer, and my siblings and me were old enough to understand it. So I left my friends behind and started a new life in a town completely new to me. Well, I didn't exactly leave them behind. I could still see them on the weekends or during the holidays, right? The neighborhood we moved in was really nothing special. The stereotypical Midwestern America suburbs. Kids playing on the streets and nice houses on symmetrical streets. I hadn't seen the house before. My parents did. But to me and my siblings, it was entirely new. I took a first look around my room. It had a clean appearance, and still some of the pre-owners' furniture. Guess they didn't need them anymore. To me, it was a good coincidence. I liked the mirror on my wall. It seemed pretty old though. Guess I'd polish it a bit to bring back its old glamour. Besides that, my room was pretty basic. A bed under the window, light flooding my room with a late summer shine. On the ceiling, a fan and a bulb without a cover. And this kind of bothered me. I wanted a nice lamp. So, I decided to sit on my bed and look for one on the internet. After some minutes of searching, I found and ordered one, just as my mom called me. Adam, come downstairs. Help us carry our stuff in. I closed the tab and walked down the stairs and out the door, grabbing the first box I saw. It read kitchen, so I went there. As I placed it on the ground, I noticed there was a note on the fridge. The pre-owners must have left it, probably informing us about a broken part that they didn't tell us before we bought it, but no. It was a list of rules. I read it out loud. Number 1, always close and lock the basement door before dusk. Number 2, if you see shadows in the living room after midnight, head into your room. They talk. Don't listen to them. Do not follow their orders. Number 3, don't leave your room from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. Number 4, if any of the taps start running at night, turn on the main light in the room and wait until it stops. Then, you can turn it off again. Number 5, if you see anyone in the mirror in the upstairs first room on the right side, immediately cover it with a blanket. Don't uncover it before dawn. Number 6, the mirror must not be moved under any circumstances. Number 7, if a raven sits outside your windowsill at night, close the blinds and hide under your blanket. The raven will poke the glass. Wait till he stops. Don't open the blinds again in that night. And number 8, if you hear glass breaking at night, turn on your main light and leave it on until dawn. Weird. Were they trying to prank us? They must be. Suddenly, my dad came into the kitchen. He saw I was reading the note and stood beside me, also reading it. He chuckled. Do they think I'm really falling for this? He ripped the note off the fridge and threw it in the trash can. Then, he continued carrying in boxes. I wasn't surprised. My dad had always been very easy with that stuff, and neither was I. I was kind of superstitious, to be honest. So I took the list out of the trash can and stuffed it into my pocket. The afternoon went by pretty quick. We set up our stuff and got familiar with our new home. I told my older sister about the rules and asked her what she thought about it, and she thought it was a prank too. But as I showed her the mirror in my room, she began thinking. Eventually, she let out a sigh of relief. Whew, luckily it's not my room. She made a face at me and left. Great. My dad refused to lock the basement door, so I guess it was up to me to keep the family from trouble. If it even was trouble. And perhaps it was a prank, perhaps I was falling for it, but I had seen enough horror movies about families moving into a new home to know better be safe than sorry. But for today, everything was perfectly alright. I spent the evening FaceTiming with my girlfriend Zoe around 1 a.m. We said goodnight. I missed her. We had been together for about a year now. I was kind of a overthinker, so I spent the next minutes thinking about us, about other guys in our hometown that may like her. What if she met someone she liked too? Her boyfriend was far away. He wouldn't notice. Eventually, I decided to stop thinking about it and go to the bathroom and then sleep. Went on the toilet, washed my hands, brushed my teeth, my usual evening routine. Just as I was about to leave, I recognized the tap was running. Not much, just a few drops, but it wouldn't stop. And sure, it was an old house, about 40 years old, but I didn't want to take any risk, so I took out the list and read it. I knew there was something about it. Indeed, there was. Rule number 4. I reacted quickly, turned on the light and waited. Eventually, the tap stopped running. Weird. Was there really something about the list? I got curious, but on the other side, I didn't want to see what happened if I disobeyed the rules, so I'd just leave with it. I went back to my room and fell asleep pretty quickly. And they say whatever you dream in your first night at a new place will come true. I didn't dream anything, or at least I don't remember. It was a tight, relaxing sleep. I woke up around 9 a.m., decided I had no purpose trying to fall asleep again, so I went downstairs. It was long after dawn, so I would unlock that basement door. Then, I suddenly realized, what if I kept it locked all the time? Wouldn't that be easier? The rules said nothing about it. But I also didn't want to gamble. I unlocked the door and went in the kitchen to have breakfast, but I couldn't eat much. Eventually, my thoughts drifted away. What if I was not at home to lock the door someday? What if I broke a rule? What if one of my family members broke a rule? How long will we have to live here? Will I have to take care of everyone living here forever? Was it all really just a prank and I was just going insane about it? It was my mom who ended my thinking. She came in through the front door, placed her keys and some bags of groceries on the table, and told me to help her carry in the rest. I quickly put my shoes on and helped her. She handed me a big bag filled with ice cream, frozen fillets, peas, and some other stuff. There's a large freezer in the basement. Can you put it down there? She said. Her words sent chills down my spine. I didn't want to go into the basement, but if I told her why, she'd probably drag me to see a therapist. Sure, no problem, I replied. I grabbed the bag and went into the basement. It was dark. Some bulbs were broken, and the stairs creaked. I didn't want to spend more time than necessary down there. I didn't even know why the door should be locked at night. The freezer in the corner of the room seemed pretty old. We don't have one like that, so I expected the pre-owners had left it there. I opened it, and stood in shock for what felt like minutes. The freezer was filled with parts of human bodies, definitely for more than one person. cut off with what seemed like a saw wrapped in plastic. I could see legs, arms, even an eyeball. There were parts laying on a grid beneath. It was a pool mixed of blood and water. The smell was horrible, stinging my nose. Just as I stood there, my mind trying to process what I was seeing, the eyeball moved. It actually moved, now looking right at me, dead into my eyes. It even blinked at me, watching me with interest, awaiting my next action. My hands were in such shock that I dropped the bag. I felt a cold, icy wind blowing around me. I was in the basement. How was it possible? It was almost like I could hear someone whisper in the breeze. Eventually, I turned around and ran upstairs. I stumbled twice, but I could keep myself from going. As I was finally back in the foyer, I threw up on the ground, tears running down my face. My mom saw me and came up to me. "Dear, are you all right? What happened?" I didn't know it either. I still couldn't comprehend what I had just seen. I managed to point at the door with my index finger. My whole arm was shaking. Mom turned around and I heard her go down the stairs, open the freezer and scream. She was screaming in shock. She quickly went upstairs. By her look, I could tell she was equally freaked out as me. Mom called the police, and then we waited. The 2 responding officers wanted us to show them what we found in the freezer. They seemed unnaturally calm for what we had just told them. When we opened the freezer, one officer held a cloth before his nose. The other, older one, did not seem to care. He told us there had been an incident in this house some years ago. What we found in the freezer simply was evidence they had forgotten to collect. Forgotten? How can you forget a freezer full of parts of human bodies? However, the officers told us they'd send someone to get them, then left shortly after. So, we were home alone again with a freezer full of bodies. Dad was at our old home, doing some paperwork and getting some remaining boxes of our stuff. My sister was at the mall. She had already made friends in this town. I spent some hours in my room, streaming shows and texting with Zoe. I could tell she was worried, and so was I. I couldn't stop thinking about the things I had seen in the freezer. The older officer said there had been an incident at our house. And what did they mean? I simply Googled our address and instantly found some newspaper articles. Apparently, a murderer had used to live in this house. He would kidnap his victims, then slowly kill them in the basement, and also eat them. I nearly threw up again while reading the article. I had to get a clear mind, put on my shoes and hoodie, and headed out for a walk. The air was fresh and I could feel it clear my mind. For a brief moment, I felt relieved. My head finally empty. But it didn't last long. Just until I reached the end of the street and realized I had to go back into the psycho killer cannibal house. Now I had no doubts anymore. The list of rules wasn't a prank. It was a guide to surviving whatever was haunting this house. And back at home, I saw Mom arguing with Dad. They were yelling at each other. The topic, obviously, the freezer in the basement and the house Dad bought. "How could you let your family move to such a terrifying place?" Mom yelled. Dad was about to answer when he recognized me coming in. "Hey, Adam, where have you been?" "Outside," I replied. Then I asked him, "Will you lock the basement door now?" I could tell he was confused. "What do you mean? Why should I? I'm sure the list was there for a reason. I interrupted. Mom and me looked at Dad now. "You're crazy. I didn't think you'd fall for such a weak prank," Dad said. "A prank? Come on. You know it's not a prank," Mom shouted at him. They began arguing again while I headed up to my room. I knew it was no prank. I had seen the eyeball stare at me with its pale, waiting look. As I arrived in my room, I noticed the mirror wasn't there. It wasn't in my room. It had been moved. It wasn't me. I knew the rules. It had to be one of my parents. I ran downstairs, bumping into my still arguing parents, interrupting them with a cracking, "Have you moved the mirror in my room?" They looked at me, irritated. Mom began to speak calmly. "Yes, dear. I took it in the garage because I thought you wouldn't want—" I didn't hear the last part. I hurried to the garage. I had to get that mirror. Shit. Rule 6. The mirror must not be moved under any circumstances. I was totally freaked out, looking for the mirror in the garage, throwing boxes around and dropping Dad's tools all over the place. It wasn't there. Just as I went outside the garage again, heading for the main door of the house, I saw something that would cause my stomach to hurt. I realized the sun was setting.